Hi, this is Greg Kilstrom. Welcome to Season 3 of the Agile World, where we discuss customer and employee experience, organizational and workforce transformation, and how business can adapt and continually improve in an agile age. The Agile World podcast is brought to you by TEKsystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to teksystems.com. To read more about the topics discussed in this show, you can go to my website at theagile.world and read my latest articles, or get a copy of my latest book, The Agile Workforce, now available on Amazon and other retailers. My name is Greg Kilstrom, and I'm the host of the Agile World podcast. Today we're going to talk about Agile M&A, applying iterative processes and systems in place in order to better ensure the success of a merger or acquisition. To help me discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome Chris Von Bogdandy, Senior Director at Slalom. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Greg.
Why don't you start off a little bit by describing what you do at Slalom?
I focus on M&A, and I focus supporting our clients from pretty much the time that the financial due diligence is done, the deal is not yet announced. And so I'm focusing on the operational due diligence piece, integration planning, and then I take our clients through day one of the acquisition all the way through when the integration is done. So I'm building out a team for that, and all aspects of the integration, whether it's the technology piece or it's setting up the central integration management office, IMO, or supporting other functions like sales and marketing or finance.
Great. Well, yeah, looking forward to talking through this. Let's start off by defining what we mean by Agile M&A. So how would you define it?
So I'm going a little bit outside of the traditional definition of Agile, like Scrum, Agile, etc.
Sure.
So for me, integration is an iterative process where on day one of the close of the integration, you may want to start taking orders from the acquired company customers in the system of the acquiring company. So how do you do that? At that point, the systems are not fully integrated yet, so you have to figure out like an interim solution where you create like an interim deal desk, for example. So you're basically creating interim operating models, and then you iterate on these operating models in order to drive efficiencies, and until you finally land on for example, the acquired company is fully integrated and everything runs in one system, in one process, and is being executed by one team. So there are many different operating models in between, and I call that an agile approach because you basically you go with an MVP, with a minimal viable product solution, and then you iterate on that, and you have to roll this out in a very agile fashion.
I've been on both sides of this process, having a company acquired as well as acquiring other companies. So I have my own set of answers to this question I'm about to ask. But why is it important from your perspective to adopt these agile principles, from the very start? Like what are some of the benefits to be gained in an M&A scenario?
So M&A is somewhat different than like a normal, let's compare it to a system deployment, where you are working on, for example, upgrading your ERP system, your Oracle system, for example, and you are setting a go live date when the new system is live, and you can, and the project has the luxury, in quotations, to work backwards from this go live date. With M&A, there is a day one date that is basically driven by the deal itself. And then on that day one, everything changes. You have accountability for the acquired company's employees, and you have also the risks that are associated that are coming with that acquisition. So, for example, the acquired company may not be at the same level of cybersecurity as you are. Very often they are not, because they're usually smaller companies that don't have the same level of resources that they can dedicate to it. So on day one, let's stay with the security aspects. On day one, you need to make a call on how do you secure the organization, and you don't have the luxury to just push this date out like an Oracle implementation if you're not quite there yet from your solution perspective. right? Day one happens, and these and all these business requirements become real, and you have to meet them.
Why do you think this way of thinking is overlooked in the M&A process, even by, I mean, you've been, you've worked with technology companies and companies that adopt agile, whether it's, what I call big A agile, or just, agility in general. They may adopt that, in, to your point, in their software development processes, or other processes. Why do you think they overlook it in M&A? What's kind of missing?
What I see quite often is that the people that are leading acquisition integration, they were really good program managers, for example, before. Let's stay with that capability, and they are focusing on the implementation of a new capability, right? Of the implementation of an Oracle or a system, or right, and their focus is go live. And as long as the go live goes well and people are trained, they are happy. An integration management office, yes, they focus on go live and focus on the implementation of capabilities. So, for example, the acquired company's employees are capable to sign up on the benefits of the acquiring company online, right? That's an
Yeah.
implementation of a capability. But the IMO goes one step further, because the IMO is really focused on the realization of the deal thesis, which articulates why did this acquisition happen, right? So
Yeah.
if the deal thesis, for example, is about all about taking a technology of an acquired company and adding this to the technology portfolio of the acquiring company and penetrating a certain customer segment or a certain region, the IMO's job is to focus on that and just do everything possible to make that happen. So there quite often there's a lot of improvisation, bubblegum and duct tape
Yeah.
associated with that, where the systems are usually not fully integrated at the beginning. It takes a little while, so you have to figure out, how do we do this? How do we get like an Excel spreadsheet in the middle? How do we get people around the problem in order to make sure that we activate the sales team really, really quickly, that they can start selling this product? Because the sooner the revenue curve goes up and the business value is there, the sooner you will hit this deal thesis. So again, from a classical perspective, the focus very often is the go live date and the implementation of the capability, versus in M&A, it is really about the value realization out of the deal, and it becomes very, very visible very quickly if that is not there, and people starting swirling. And I've got a couple of examples that I can go through.
Yeah, I'd love to. I think diving into a couple examples would be great. I know we talked a bit, as we were prepping for this show, about a couple examples in your career and your work. If you don't mind sharing, just kind of to give a better understanding, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So when I was at Symantec, I was leading IT demand management for a while, and we were looking at desktop video conferencing. And we had a large RFP out at the time for desktop video conferencing, the cameras and everything that goes into it. I mean, that was before every single computer had a camera built into it. So we had a couple of vendors that were proposing on the RFP. It was somewhere in the $3 to $5 million range, and and during the RFP process, two of these bidding vendors that were responding to our RFP uh, merged, or one acquired another
Mm,
one, I would say.
yeah.
And so I called the sales rep of the acquiring company and said, "Hey, I saw that you just acquired your competition. Can you tell me what that means for the proposal that you gave me? Is this going to change the pricing? Am I able to get your camera with the service package of the other company, for example?" And he said, "I don't know yet. The product roadmap is still in development." And
Oh,
and he said,
yeah.
just call me back in a week. And I called him back a week later. I called him back 3 weeks. I gave them basically 3 weeks. And then we were leaning towards that company, but the contract went to another vendor, because I just didn't know how that company would bring those two technologies together. And
Yeah.
and I wasn't willing to put my neck on the line against for my CIO to just trust them and say, okay, this is going to happen, and we will take care of you. So rather than creating an MVP around, this is how our sales organization can communicate specifically how we bring these technologies together. They just punted this all the way down the road, and there was basically no messaging around the integrated product roadmap. And I was just one example, and I'm sure that they lost millions and millions of dollars in the marketplace because of all these RFPs that were out there for desktop video conferencing that went soft because the messaging wasn't there. There was no messaging. Um,
Yeah, and that's so counterintuitive because I mean, one of the main metrics of M&A is like how, value realization and as quickly as possible, right? So yeah, I mean, how might they have done something differently, I guess, in a better world?
right. So I see a lot of companies. I've I've been in M&A for 20 years now. I see some deal theses that are on the back of a napkin.
Yeah.
And I understand how that comes to be when sometimes deals fall out of exclusivity, when a definitive agreement, for example, is ended, and then the target company can go out and they have a purchase price from the other company in mind, right? So they can basically go out and shop around and say, hey, this company wants to pay X for us. Do you want to pay X plus Y, but you only have 1 week to put the deal together? I've seen this happen for multi-billion-dollar deals where you don't have time to put a fully baked deal thesis together, which includes how the products are being integrated and how the go-to-market motions are supposed to happen, right? What are you going to give to the channel? What are you giving to your direct sales organization? What do you want to drive through your e-commerce platform, etc.? However, I see a trend where the deal thesis are much more nuanced and much more holistic, where these type of decisions are made on how certain products are coming together and how certain products are being bundled into solutions and being pushed into the market. So prior to close, that messaging should be ready to roll, and then again in a true agile fashion, you start sending it out and you start iterating and fine tuning it based on your audiences and the feedback that you are getting from the ground, which is the second core piece that I want to underline is for M&A, you need very short feedback loops on how things are going. I call them listening posts. So if you adjust, so for example, a listening post is what is the pipeline velocity of the company that you want to acquire? Is the pipeline velocity slowing down? Some of that slowdown you could expect, but is it slowing down too much? Another listening post is do a round of interviews with your leaders for your key customers and see how they are actually viewing this acquisition. So you don't send one direction communication to them and explain to them how great that acquisition is, but you are actually meeting with them and talking to them proactively, and don't wait for the customer to pick up the phone and call their sales rep. Other listening posts are the employees. There are surveys that you can launch. There are things like change agent networks that you can start. There are a whole bunch of things, but without these listening posts, you don't know how the solutions that you're putting in place, how you have to fine tune them and where you have to focus.
Yeah, I love that listening post concept. I mean, do you think that? I mean, again, going back to certain teams may be a little more okay with this iterative and agile process, and I would imagine the finance teams and ops teams may be a bit more risk averse and things like that. So agility may, I guess, a misperception of agility may cause some red flags or whatever. But I mean, do you see that overall, like if an organization is generally embracing agile, and again, not just in IT, but more, more holistically, are they more open to this concept, or what are kind of what are the signs of, okay, this is going to go more smoothly than not, within an organization?
Are you talking about more smoothly the execution of agile principles or the integration overall?
Good question. I would say the integration.
The integration, again, it comes down to what are your listening posts.
Yeah.
There are three types of listening posts that are usually developed for acquisitions. At the first one are let's talk about metrics, right? So metrics are associated to listening posts. At the first level, you have milestone metrics, where, for example, you have day one, and on day one, you want everybody of the acquired company to be in the HR system of the acquiring company. That's kind of a yes and no thing, right? So
Yeah.
can you hit this or not? It's good old project management on scope
Right.
and on time and on budget, right? Things that you're measuring there. At the next level, you have operational metrics that are more related to, like, for example, employee satisfaction, survey results. If you do net promoter score, you may have net promoter scores that you're collecting from your customers and from your partners. Usually, I find the metrics that the company uses can be leveraged but are not short enough. So you can't wait for the next quarter's NPR results in order to
Yeah.
see that your integration is going down the drain, right? And then you're already one quarter in and it's too late.
Yeah.
So these are operational metrics. Operational metrics may also be, for example, meeting velocity of your sales organization. It can be pipeline velocity, etc. And then at the third level, you've got the financial results. Do you see the better together deals, which are deals where you're selling something from the acquired company and the acquiring company together as a bundle, or cross sell financial metrics where you're selling something from the acquiring company to the acquired company customer base and vice versa. So those are kind of metrics from a financial perspective that you really want to hit. I don't see a lot of appetite these days, at least for my clients, on cost reduction. But I know that in other I work mostly with tech and healthcare life science, so cost is not really a big issue. But in my past, working with other type of industries like retail or manufacturing, cost is a big topic. So how
Yeah.
long does it take to get out of a facility and close down your rental contracts, or close down certain retail locations? So these are certain cost things that you want to track. So there are three levels, and you need listings posts to all of those three levels, and that really enables you and gives you visibility into where do you need to be agile, and where do you need to start defining solutions and implementing solutions and iterating on your solutions until you get to your final operating model.
Have you seen any impacts over the last year as far as activity or just how M&A is being approached? I mean, it's kind of an open-ended question, but anything
Mhm.
from just the concept of remote work being a lot more accepted, or have you seen any immediate impacts in M&A activity or the decisions being made or anything like that?
I see a big shift towards focusing on the people part.
Yeah.
Change management is becoming huge. If you look at the Fortune 500 in the 1980s and 1990s, 80% of the valuation were based on tangible assets,
Yeah.
machinery, factories, I don't know, airplanes, things like that.
Yeah.
Today, over 80% of the valuation of Fortune 500 companies is intellectual property. Intellectual property is much more people dependent. Intangible assets. So intangible assets are more related to people.
Yeah.
Intellectual property. It's brand. It's customer relationships, etc., etc. So in the deal world, there's more and more focus on reducing unwanted turnover and improving productivity of the acquired company's employees. So there's an average turnover of 33% of acquired companies' employees, which is a huge loss.
Yeah.
And there are several factors leading to that. So I see a lot of my clients now really indexing very heavily towards what are the things that we need to do in order to keep the people that we've acquired.
Well, one last question before we wrap up here. For those companies that are anticipating M&A activity in the near future, what advice would you have for them to kind of get their houses in order or prep to be able to take a more agile approach?
If you look at your corporate strategy and think about what percentage of your growth is coming from inorganic growth, and then take a good look at your operation and say, is my operation ready for this? Because very often organizations grow organically, and they grow organically around the business objectives that they currently have. So if it is not in the DNA of operating leaders, if they are not accustomed to M&A, to get their operation ready for M&A. For example, one of my clients has 250,000 SKUs, and they have basically only 12 products. They have so many SKUs because the way that they are driving their SKU structure is around their sales model, the way they're bundling, different pricing models, et cetera, et cetera. So when they acquire a new company and they come in with a new product, it takes them over half a year to add a new SKU. And that gates the ability for the sales organization and the partner organization to actually sell it. So the first thing is figure out where are the friction points in your organization that will accelerate or delay your M&A growth, and then do something about it. For example, you may start a project that says, okay, our SKU structure, we have to fix that. Or our data, the way that we treat data, even customer data, we have to fix this. So that's the first thing. The second thing is start building relationships with companies that you are the type of companies that you want to acquire. So you start understanding how they actually operate. There are partnership models that you can do. The corporate development folks, they usually know really well how to do this. And it really enables you to better understand the operating model of the other companies. So you can anticipate, again, as you're bringing them in, how will we accelerate the value realization? Because the best integrations that I have done were with companies that already in the past had a lot of touch points and already had a very good understanding of the mutual operating models. The third thing is from an agile perspective, and look at when you're forming an integration management office, the people that are going to run this, it is really helpful if they have an agile background and understand how to drive the value of the organization, of the acquisition, so the deal thesis, rather than just implementing and installing a capability in the organization like an ERP or a new Workday implementation. So those are the three things that I suggest to my clients that they can do in order to improve their capacity for inorganic growth.
Well, Chris, thanks so much for joining the show. For those listening, what's the best way for them to keep up with what you're doing?
Oh, I'm quite active on LinkedIn. So if you just look me up on LinkedIn, you can find me there. I post articles there. I'm part of the M&A Academy in Chicago, and I'm presenting there. Or just hit me up at chris.vonbogdandy@slalom.com. That's my email address.
Wonderful. Well, again, I'd like to thank Chris Von Bogdandy, Senior Director at Slalom, for joining the show. Thanks for listening to the Agile World with Greg Kihlstrom. See you next week. Thanks again for listening to the Agile World podcast, brought to you by Tech Systems. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe on your podcast channel of choice and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can learn more and get a copy of my latest book, The Agile Workforce, from my website at theagile.world.